Welcome to the Safety Map podcast. I'm Alyssa Decker, founder and developer of the Safety Map framework, and this is where we talk about how safety, not performance, is the foundation of healing. We're talking about healing that goes beyond coping skills and into structural change. I'm so glad you're here. Have you ever had the exact same fight or disagreement with someone 47 ways? I call this having the same argument wearing different clothing. Different day, different wording, different emotional ending. One person feels pressured, one person feels abandoned, one person feels shut down, one person escalates. And we're just repeating a cycle. Both people leave feeling misunderstood. Neither leaves feeling satisfied. And the problem is that most relationship advice focuses on communication. But what if the real issue is two nervous systems that are predicting entirely different threats? That's what we're talking about on today's episode of the Safety Map podcast. Hey, Alyssa here. Thanks for joining me for another episode of the Safety Map podcast. If you are enjoying this content, if you're learning something here, or even just identifying with what we've been talking about, please take a moment to subscribe or follow on whatever platform you're currently listening in on. This really helps other people find the content, and it makes sure that you don't miss a single upcoming episode. Thank you so much. Now back to today's episode. When two safety maps meet, their relationship immediately begins to organize around safety and protection. And what is so fascinating, and what we're really going to break down here in this episode, is that one person's safety strategy may be another person's threat prediction. We sometimes call this triggering each other, but it's a little more sophisticated than that. Most reactions happen before conscious thought catches up. One partner says, "We need to talk," and the other person has a reaction to that in their bodies before they have even processed what that conversation might be about. We experience things like delayed text responses and tone changes and sighs and needing space and emotional intensity and criticism and withdrawal in completely different ways based on our own safety strategies and our own threat predictions. Your nervous system is not only listening to words. In fact, emerging neuroscience is showing that tone of voice and the pacing of the words that are said communicates more than the words themselves. Which, if you think about it, really lines up with our experience, because we do have emotional reactions, we do have physiological reactions before our brain processes the words. We're not reacting to the words. We're acting to the meaning making that our system is doing. And that meaning making is largely happening based on tone, pacing, body language, the nonverbal cues. This is also why two people can say the same exact thing and we react differently to each. All of our systems are calibrated differently, meaning we interpret those signals differently based on our past experience, based on what threat predictions our safety map is currently running, based on the level of harm that we've experienced in regards to certain things or following certain cues. No two people are going to interpret the same thing in the same way as someone else. Now, I mentioned at the beginning that some people's safety cues can be other people's threat cues. And this is where we see safety maps really colliding oftentimes. And when I say colliding, I don't necessarily mean that we are yelling and screaming at each other. It can look like that, and sometimes it does, but it can also look like two people who shut down, who avoid, who circle around each other, who never talk about the difficult things because they have yet to find a middle ground. They have yet to find a place of communication and a place of safety where neither one feels the need to react from threat prediction. Okay, so here are some examples of this. One person might need discussion to feel safe. Another person might experience that discussion as pressure. One person needs space in order to calm down and regulate. The other person experiences space as abandonment. One person values directness. The other experiences directness as an attack. And on the list goes. We often try to create safety for ourselves using the exact strategy that the person we are trying to connect with experiences as threat. This is why sometimes communication advice works. In other words, it helps us adjust our strategies in a way that communicates safety in both directions. But it's also why the communication advice that we often get sometimes falls apart, because scripted words cannot override nervous system prediction. The words do not matter as much as all of that other stuff that your system processes before it even gets to the words. We might apologize, but the body language or the tone of voice doesn't resonate with the other person. It doesn't land as sincere. We might choose to say the healthy phrase through clenched teeth and with a tight body, and the other person perceives our discomfort. We might force validation, and the other person knows that we're forcing it. You can say the right words, but if your nervous system is still defending, because your safety map has predicted threat, what the other person feels most is the defense. Communication isn't just the words, it is the nervous system state that the words travel through. And state, when it comes to nervous systems, is much louder and much faster to land with the other person than any words that you use. This is also why, by the way, text messages are so easily misunderstood, because in a text message, we're limited to just the words. But like we just discussed, the words themselves are a fraction of the entire communication. So communication skills are useful, but they are not sufficient in a situation where safety maps are predicting danger. Couples repeat the same fight in different outfits. I say this a lot. I love it because it just really gives a great visual for this cycle that we get stuck in. The content might change. We might fight about the dishes instead of the laundry, or we might fight about how to spend the weekend instead of how to spend our money. And we might be wearing different clothes. And we might be in a different place. But the underlying messages are often the same. Fights are rarely about the dishes or the parenting or the money or the travel or the how to spend the weekend. Arguments between two people are almost always about the things that we do not feel safe enough to express to the other person. Things like, I'm alone, I'm failing, I'm trapped, I don't feel important to you, I'm being controlled here, nothing I do is enough, this connection feels unstable, I'm scared, I'm hurt, I want to belong. Those things are often what the fight is really about. Most recurring relationships are about the threat prediction attached to the topic. I think it's important to interject here that safety in a relationship is not about agreement. Safety is not the sameness. It's not no conflict. It's not everything goes perfectly every time I express myself to this person. Safety is I can fully express myself here, even my deepest pain, my deepest longings, my deepest fears, and remain connected. In other words, the connection can survive the argument. That is what safety looks like. Some couples are highly agreeable, but deeply unsafe. This was me in my relationship. I was married for 19 years. We almost never fought, largely because I almost never expressed a deep opinion about anything that actually mattered to me, because it was not safe to do that. I was always risking whatever connection we had by expressing the deepest parts of me. But there are other couples, many of them, who can disagree openly because there is safety present, meaning we can fight and yell and scream and express everything that we want to express or that we need to express, and trust that the connection will remain stable. In other words, you are still going to show up for me tomorrow and next week, even if I tell you the deepest, darkest things about me, even if I show you the real me. Repair in a relationship is more important than not arguing. Coming back together after the argument is an expression of safety, but repair requires enough safety for honesty. So what actually helps? How do we break this cycle? How do we build safety in our relationships? Most people try to solve relational patterns at the level of behavior. Okay, this goes back to a lot of those communication strategies that you will find in a lot of books, a lot of podcasts that a lot of therapists may give you. We attempt to create safety in the relationship by changing our behavior, by changing our phrasing, by using I statements, by slowing down the conversation, by approaching from a different angle, by reducing pressure, by increasing observation, by lowering expectations or communicating expectations more clearly. All of those can be helpful. But lasting change, true safety in a relationship will not be achieved through any of those things. Most lasting change requires understanding what the nervous system believes that the behavior is predicting. In other words, it requires understanding what the other person's threat prediction is. Why are they getting activated by the thing that you're saying or doing? And it's also important to understand that may not actually have anything to do with the situation at hand, and it may not have anything to do with you. They may be responding to a threat prediction that comes from their family of origin, from their childhood, from a previous relationship, and something in the way that you are interacting with them is triggering that threat response. This is why I do not teach communication scripts. I do not tell you what to say or how to say it. What I do is help you map the loop and the threat prediction underneath the communication. Because once you understand this other person is reacting based on a threat prediction, their system is organizing this behavior in an attempt to protect them. What does that mean? What does that look like? What's underneath that? And how can we speak directly to how can we adjust and rewrite the threat prediction in a way that allows safety to build, to grow for the very first time. Without safety, there cannot be healthy communication between two people. Because in the absence of safety, there will always be defense. Think about that for just a second. In the absence of safety, there will always be a threat, right? If you're not safe, that means you're experiencing a threat. And where there is a threat, your system must defend. So once you understand the prediction and the protection pattern, the relationship starts to make a lot more sense. The goal in a relationship, any relationship, whether it's an intimate partner, a spouse, a coworker, a family member, a parent, an adult child, it doesn't matter. The goal is not becoming perfectly regulated humans who never trigger each other. That is not going to happen. The goal is creating enough safety that two people can stay connected stably, reliably, and they can trust that connection even when conflict and even when unfortunate reality happens. Even when life gets stressful, even when money is short, even when health concerns happen, even when traumatic events happen, even when people die, when grief happens. In other words, safety in a relationship is I can trust that I will be able to remain connected to this person even when things get hard. And even when I reveal all of myself to this person. So let me ask you this. What relational patterns keep repeating in your life? Maybe in your intimate partner relationship, maybe in some other relationship, like in your family of origin. And what might your nervous system be protecting? What might you be defending against without realizing it? In what ways might you be experiencing your nervous system's defense because safety is not yet mutually present? Because safety is not yet fully available. Let me know in the comments. I would love to hear your thoughts on this topic, and I would love for you to share this episode with someone else who needs to hear this message. If you would like to engage or interact more on this topic, my email is in the show notes. I would love to hear from you. And if you haven't already, be sure to download my free PDF, Calm is Not the Same as Safety. This guide is designed to be your very first stepping stone into understanding what threat prediction looks like and feels like in your body so that you can begin understanding how these patterns are affecting your relationships. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you soon in the next episode of the Safety Map podcast.